I'm Liam.
I'm Wayne.
You're listening to In Film We Trust YouTube,
a place where we post clips from our recent episode.
All links down below in the description.
And now, on with the show.
You have to say, of all the filmmakers we've talked about, Gus Van Sant has to have one of the most interesting and diverse filmographies.
Would you say he almost has a one for him, one for you type mentality? He'll
he
go
does.
art house, then studio film, art house, studio film.
It's been pointed out, someone said he kind of flip-flops between making kind of low-scale independent films and then kind of sentimental mainstream crowd pleasers, you could say.
What's your relationship? Because as I think I've stated in this podcast before, he's one of my favourite filmmakers.
Yeah, you're more a fan of him than I. Well, I like Van Sant. There's some films of his I like. Maybe his bigger stuff, like Good Will Hunting, I was really good. Did you ever see Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot?
Yes.
That was really good.
That was good.
I really enjoyed it.
That was a good film. Did you? Your dislike of Jonah Hill, did you like him in that film?
I liked him in that film, yes.
All right,
yes, I actually did like him in that
that's
film.
Something,
yes.
Then.
Yes, no, it was Jack Black that was responsible for the accident, wasn't it?
Bastard. That's why you never drink drive, Wayne.
Never trust Jack Black, yeah. But generally, especially his kind of small-scale ones, I've either not seen them or I've not really enjoyed them. Did you see the Psycho remake he did?
It's almost a shot-for-shot remake.
It's
been a long time. Because when you're going that avenue, you may as well just watch the original.
Yeah, well, he came out and said, I didn't understand this. He came out and he said he wanted to introduce Psycho to a new generation. If I was going to do that, I would show the new generation Psycho. I wouldn't remake it.
You would just re-release in the cinema again.
Exactly, just do a re-release, because try to remake a film like Psycho by someone like Hitchcock, very difficult to do.
What did you think of the remake, though? Did you?
I didn't like it. I thought
it's okay.
A lot of bits of it were changed, didn't really make any sense, and then it was just retreading old ground, so I wasn't a fan.
Do you think it showed a little more perversity where the original had to shy away during...
It did, because was there not a scene where... Because the first one, there's a lot of voyeurism, like when he's watching through the hole.
There's implied, yes.
Implied, but here, does he not actually masturbate when he's looking through the spy hole?
I think so, Wayne.
Yeah, exactly. So it felt like it was a lot more on the nose, rather than just being kind of implied.
But... where I've started with is Drugstore Cowboy, which was his second feature film, which huge fan, and he followed that with My Own Private Idaho, one of my favourite films of all time.
I forgot to mention I did see that. I really
you
liked
that one,
especially River Phoenix's performance. That was fantastic. Yeah. Yes, that was a very good film. Was it not kind of Shakespearean?
There was elements of it where it was almost, was it the King Lear aspect?
Because there was moments where like Keanu and River, they speak in kind of like Shakespearean
Old
dialect,
English,
English dialect. Yes, but I really enjoyed that.
And obviously this film, it kind of forms it's the second part of what's unofficially called the Death Trilogy.
Yeah, I've either seen it as Death Trilogy or Death Tetralogy, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, the fourth would be Paranoid Park.
It's been debated though whether.
But we're mainly going for the three.
Mainly the three. So we have Jerry first, then we have Elephant, and then we have Last Days.
Which should be noted, all these films are inspired by. They're not tellings of. These are fictionalized, inspired versions of real life deaths.
Yeah, because I came across Last Days, I think I was just flicking channels, and I seen a chunk of this, and I thought, oh, this is a Kurt Cobain documentary, because the guy looks like him. It kind of looks like what his Last Days.
Of course, he's played by Michael Pitt, and the character in Last Days is called Blake.
Yes, and it's very similar to these other films. It's very sparse, very pared down. Not a lot of things that would appeal to mainstream audiences.
Well, apparently Gus Van Sant shot My Own Private Idaho this same way. It was only in the editing he changed that somewhat, but he shot it actually for the long takes and that. Because Gus Van Sant for this film, Jerry and Last Days, was very influenced by a Hungarian filmmaker called Béla Tarr. And Béla Tarr was famous for his long takes. He made a film which in English is called Satan's Tango. And do you know how long that film lasts?
Is it very short, like 70 minutes or something?
Wayne.
Oh, no.
7 hours, 30 minutes.
It's not a feature film.
7 hours, 30.
Okay. It's like a whole camping trip.
That's a day out.
That's a day out, yeah.
Yes.
That's a day out.
But that's who he was influenced by, these long, meandering takes.
It was said, because Private Idaho was in the 90s, wasn't it?
Early 90s.
Early 90s, yeah. But when he did Jerry, this is when he was really influenced and when he started integrating it, because Elephant was filmed like this, but you're saying Private Idaho was only edited.
Yeah,
later.
As I said, I Own Private Idaho, he was more experimental, because it's still quite an experimental film, that film. People kind of forget, because it's got River Phoenix and they think, it's got a luster to it, but it's a very experimental film. But yeah, as I said, it was shot somewhat in long takes, but in the editing process, they changed it
Yeah,
somewhat.
edited this one. And Jerry was early 2000s?
Possibly, because this film is 2003.
2002 when it was made, 2002 when it was released,
So we're talking probably 2000, I'd say, for Jerry.
Yeah,
roundabout there. Anyway.
Yeah, because this was it was actually filmed in Oregon. Is that not where Van Sant's from?
He is from Oregon.
From Oregon,
Most
yes.
of his films, well, of course, Kurt Cobain, another Seattle guy.
Yeah.
So we're staying in the same ballpark.
The kind of northwest area,
Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, he made it in, like late 2002. A lot of non-actors were cast in the roles.
I think they were all real-life characters, pretty much. Real-life actors, weren't they? None of them were professional.
No.
And what he would do was, in casting, he would get to know the actors, so to speak, the high school kids, and he would kind of form the character around their real-life personalities.
That does make sense. It makes it for more naturalistic, because that's a word I reckon will come
And he
up
would
a lot.
ask what their feeling was towards Columbine itself.
Yeah, because it was filmed at a closed-down school.
Yeah, it was closed down when they filmed it, but it's since been torn down from asbestos.
2007, yeah, it was
Was it
demolished.
2007?
Asbestos, bloody hell.
Yeah, but if you don't disturb asbestos, you're okay.
You just have to stay away from it. And it was actually this film, you mentioned Columbine, of course.
Yes.
This was supposed to be, as I understand, a documentary about Columbine originally, but then he brought in kind of like a fictionalized account. Do you think it would have been almost too tasteless? Because this film was made only a few years after Columbine happened.
Yeah, it started out as a documentary. Mm-hmm. Well, it was going to be on the Columbine massacre. Funnily enough, talking about documentaries, the Michael Moore documentary, Bowling for Columbine. Everybody to prepare for this film actually watched that documentary.
Because that was around about this time, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because that actually won Oscar for Best Documentary Feature.
And you've got to remember, around this time, that kind of plays a part in this film somewhat. You know, there was a lot of blame on video games because, the Columbine massacre students were big fans of the first-person shooter Doom. Can you remember?
They were big Doom fans, yes.
Or Marilyn Manson, remember, in the documentary.
Yeah, because if it happened, like 5 or 6 years later, they would have said, it's Grand Theft Auto or something like that.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Kurt Cobain earlier. This film, Elephant, was also kind of inspired by Kurt Cobain's death, especially it was the media frenzy that introduced Van Sant, because he was saying, what's the cause? And he said, as I got closer to the subject, the answer grew more elusive. My answer to what happened is, probably not much. It was probably pretty boring. Very strange thing to say, like, what's happening in this film is almost kind of matter of fact.
I think that ties into how this film is shot.
It is. I think it does.
The meandering aspect, which we'll obviously get to, but
yeah.
One of the producers of this film, did you see, was J.T. Leroy. Are you familiar with J.T. Leroy?
No, the name sounds
that's
familiar.
an interesting story, Wayne. There's a documentary on J.T. Leroy. Okay, this is hard to unpack.
Okay.
So J.T. Leroy was this young novelist. He had wrote a novel, and I can't remember the title of the novel, but it was about lot lizards, so to speak. Lot lizards are prostitutes who kind of are around truck stops, hence the term lot lizards. But what came out later on, and why it was exposed in a New York Magazine article, was J.T. Leroy was not a lot lizard. He was not a male. It was actually a female writing as a male.
Oh, okay.
And he had kind of conned his way, or she had conned his way into the art scene. So even when she had produced this film as an associate producer, people still thought this J.T. Leroy was the actual author of these novels, these memoirs, which was a very interesting story. So if anybody's not saw the J.T. Leroy story, they need to check out that documentary.
Yeah, look into it. That sounds interesting, yeah. And this film actually shares its name. Did you see the short film called Elephant by Alan Clark?
Never seen it.
No, I haven't seen it either. It's about the Irish Troubles.
Yep.
And it's kind of like this. It's a very minimalist style. But interestingly, when Van Sant took the name Elephant, he thought it was about the parable about the blind man and the elephant.
Yeah, well, everybody sees a different part of the elephant, so each person's interpretation is different.
But it's like, my opinion is correct, even though it's subjective. Yeah, but it was actually the phrase, the elephant in the room. Right. Which, again, you could really apply to this, the kind of obvious issue that nobody really wants to talk about.
Though it's one of those things, is like, we all always discuss, this open interpretation. Both of those interpretations are right.
Yeah. It's like neither of them are wrong.
Neither of them are
wrong.
wrong.
You can apply both of them to the situation. Yeah.
Well, perfectly. You don't even have to make little leniencies to make the point. You could almost say school shooters or whatever you want to discuss. Like, it's obviously the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to discuss why these things happen, and everybody has a different opinion on why the thing occurs. So both interpretations are right.
Yes.
But you said that film, Alan Clark's Elephant. which was Harmony Korine, filmmaker,
Harmony Korine, yeah.
writer of Kids, director of Spring Breakers, etc. One of Gus Van Sant's great friends.
Yeah, good friend of his, yeah.
And it was Harmony Korine's favourite film. Gus Van Sant had never seen Alan Clark's Elephant when he made this.
Okay.
But he just knew it step by step because Harmony Korine was such a big fan. And obviously them being friends, he had explained essentially what happened throughout the whole film.
He told him what the entire
Yes.
film actually was, and he managed to make it from from those memories.
But not only that interpretation, you're speaking of, Wayne, Alan Clark's Elephant, the BBC film Elephant, it's shot in a very similar way to this, apparently.
As far as I know, it's very much Steadicam. I think it's pretty much plotless, but it follows somebody going on basically just killing a bunch of people. It's like it just follows them around.
Yes.
Almost see you were just following an actual murderer. And
Yep.
again, it plays into the end of this film, the end of Elephants.
It does, Wayne.
So actually, this was actually quite an acclaimed film because it won the Palme d'Or.
Palme d'Or,
Won the
yeah.
Cannes Film Festival.
2003.
Yeah, fascinating. That. And,
Deserving win.
it was very polarized upon release, though. Van Sant has attributed to its lack of narrative. He said, "In some ways, we're conditioned to think that paying money for movie tickets means we should see something we understand. It's the same with art. People want a painting to be of something. If it's not of something, it's like, what the hell am I looking at?"
Do you know what, Wayne? Nobody can see your air quotes.
Sorry, I'm trying to say
Yes.
I'm saying it in an air quotey way.
Yes.
Yeah, but that was his thing. He thought if you're going to go to pay to see a movie, you're not going to, you're paying to see a story and developed characters and stuff.
Which fits into the narrative of this film. We were saying interpretation, etc., etc. You can't explain these kind of tragedies, can you?
No.
There is no explaining them.
What is a good way to do it? That's like, what's the best approach to making a
And
film
I'll get
like this?
what I'll get to later is when we're discussing this film further. I think this film brilliantly explains it.